Most people think there's something wrong with the dog, but here's the kicker. The dog isn't broken. The approach is. And before you think this is just a dog thing, it's not. You see the same pattern in business. Someone says, "My employees won't listen." Well, maybe it's the leadership. Maybe it's the hiring. Maybe it's the tone you use when you're stressed. It's always easier to blame outward than inward. We've all done it. Let me give you an example. People say, "My dog listens in the kitchen, but not outside." That tells me instantly the dog isn't confused. The environment is teaching the dog what to respect. Or they'll say, "My dog bites strangers." Okay, but they don't bite you. That means they can control themselves. They just don't see you as the leader in certain situations. And this is where people usually get uncomfortable because deep down, there's this moment where you realize you're the tuning fork. You're the one the dog is reading. Your energy, your inconsistency, your hesitation, that's what they're responding to. Once you understand that, the whole game shifts. Everything becomes simpler because now you're not trying to fix the dog, you're adjusting the signal you're sending. And here's what's wild. There's a specific moment in the day when your dog is most open to leadership, a tiny mistake almost every owner makes that trains the dog to ignore them, and one simple shift that flips a reactive dog into a responsive dog. We'll get to all of that. But first, I need you to really sit with this one idea. Your dog isn't the problem. Your dog is the mirror. They show you exactly where your leadership ends. Now let's peel this back, because once you understand the mechanics behind all this, you're going to look at your dog with a whole new lens. And honestly, you might look at yourself differently too, in a good way. Here's what most people never realize. Dogs don't wake up in the morning trying to give you a hard time. They wake up trying to understand what their job is. No dog wakes up thinking, "How can I ruin Jeff's day?" They wake up thinking, "Who's leading today and what do they want from me?" And if the answer is unclear, that's when confusion enters the picture. And confusion is the birthplace of 90% of the behaviors people complain about. Let me give you a simple way to understand it. In every dog's mind, there's a scoreboard. They're constantly reading the room. They watch how you move, how you talk, how you breathe. They're not listening to your words as much as they're reading your energy. When your energy says one thing and your body says another, guess which one they believe? That's right, the body, the behavior, the tone, the consistency. Those are the things that tell the dog, "Oh, okay, this is how serious we are today." Think about a moment when you were stressed. Maybe work was a mess. Your phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Your patience was low, and right at that moment, your dog decided to bark at the window or steal something off the counter. You probably snapped at them. Maybe you raised your voice. Maybe you gave a correction that came from frustration rather than leadership. And then you wondered why the dog didn't listen. The dog didn't listen because in that moment, your energy lost clarity. You switched from leading to reacting. Here's the insight most people never consider. Dogs are experts at reading emotional posture. You know how you can tell when a friend walks into a room and they had a rough day even before they say anything? Dogs do that with you every minute of the day. They're scanning for your emotional weather report. And if your weather report is stormy, they prepare for a storm. If your weather report is calm and steady, they relax into it. This is why I say the dog isn't the problem. The dog is the mirror. Dogs reflect the tone of the household. They reflect the emotional patterns they live in. They reflect the boundaries you set or fail to set. And I don't mean that as judgment. I mean that as opportunity. Because if the dog is reflecting you, that means you have the power to shift that reflection. Let me give you a broad example I've seen countless times. Someone calls me and says, "Jeff, my dog is so anxious." And I walk into their home and guess who else is anxious? The owner. Not in a bad way, not as a flaw, just as a lifestyle. High-stress job, phone always ringing, overthinking every little detail. And the dog is sitting there like, "Okay, if this is the energy of the leader, this must be the correct energy for me too." Or they say, "Jeff, my dog guards me everywhere." And the owner is someone who feels unsafe or unsure a lot. The dog isn't trying to be a nightmare. The dog thinks they're stepping up because the leader isn't stepping forward. They're filling the vacuum. And a vacuum always gets filled by whatever has the strongest presence. Sometimes that presence is a 90-pound dog with a suspicious attitude toward the outside world. Here's another insight. Dogs are born followers unless leadership is absent. When leadership is absent, they don't think, "I guess there is no leader." They think, "Well, someone has to do it." And guess who steps up? The dog with the most confidence or the dog with the most anxiety? Both create chaos in different ways. And this is where human psychology and dog psychology overlap. People wait for circumstances to change before they step into leadership. Dogs wait for leadership before they change their behavior. If the human waits and the dog waits, nobody moves. That's where behavior problems live. In that gap, in that silence, in that hesitation. This is why I say the dog is reading you like scripture. They read your patterns, your timing, your consistency, your tone. They know whether you mean what you say before you say it. And if you don't mean it, they don't follow it. If you're unsure, they're unsure. If you're inconsistent, they experiment. If you're calm and grounded, they settle into that groove. Leadership to a dog is not loud. Leadership is consistent. Leadership is predictable. Leadership is a rhythm, not a moment. It's the stability they gravitate toward. And once you understand this, the whole picture shifts. You stop asking, how do I fix the dog? And you start asking, how do I show the dog a signal they can actually follow? That shift alone changes everything, because now you're speaking a language the dog understands. You're communicating in timing rather than emotion. You're giving direction instead of reactions. So let me say this plainly. When you change how you show up, the dog changes how they respond. When your patterns shift, their behavior shifts. When your clarity goes up, their confusion goes down. And once that happens, everything starts getting easier. Now, let me show you what this looks like in the real world, because theory is nice, but you need to see how this plays out. And I'm going to keep this broad on purpose, because this same pattern happens over and over again. You've got someone who calls me and says, Jeff, my dog is reactive, and my dog wants to bite everyone. And I always ask the same question. Okay, who exactly is the dog trying to bite? And the answer is almost always the same. Well, anyone who comes through the door. Delivery guys, guests, my in-laws, strangers. And I go, okay, who does the dog not bite? And they say, well, me and my family. Right there, before we even touch a leash, we've got our answer. The dog is perfectly capable of controlling itself. It already knows how. It just doesn't think it needs to for anyone outside the tribe. So I say, great. What happens if you tell the dog not to bite? And the owner looks at me like I just told them to solve a calculus problem. Oh, it doesn't listen. Okay. What happens if you put the dog on a leash? And that's when they drop the bomb. Oh, this dog hates leashes. Won't let me put it on. Freaks out. Tries to bite the leash, shuts down, refuses to walk. So let's pause. You've got a dog that doesn't like strangers, doesn't like the leash, doesn't respect boundaries, doesn't accept direction, and is used to making decisions for the house. And you're trying to fix behavior without the foundational tool that communicates direction. This is like saying, Jeff, I want to learn piano, but I hate touching the keys. You need the keys. The dog needs the leash. Another version of this story, and I've seen this a million times, is the dog who is an absolute angel inside one room of the house and becomes a chaotic tornado in every other room. They'll say, my dog listens perfectly in the kitchen. And I say, okay, what about the living room? And they'll say, oh no, total disaster. Or they'll say, my dog walks great in the backyard, but pulls like a freight train the minute we step outside the gate. Again, nothing is wrong with the dog. The context is wrong. The leadership consistency is wrong. The signals are changing depending on the environment. Here's another common one. The clingy dog who never leaves the owner's side but barks at every noise outside. People act like this is loyalty. Number, it's insecurity. The dog thinks it has to be on high alert because the person they're shadowing is broadcasting uncertainty. I've walked into homes where the owner can't even go to the bathroom without the dog crying outside the door. That's not love. That's a dog filling in the gaps because nobody's taught them what calm leadership looks like. Let me give you one more, because this one hits hard for a lot of people. The owner who tries to train with emotion instead of timing. So the dog jumps on guests and they scream, off! But it's 2 seconds too late, or their tone is panicked, or they're correcting the jumping while also petting the dog to apologize for correcting them. And the dog is sitting there like, I have no idea what any of this means, but clearly the humans are emotional, so I'll handle the situation. Every one of these stories has the same root. The dog isn't trying to be difficult. The dog is trying to interpret the mixed signals it's getting. That's why I don't get mad at these dogs. Even the spicy ones. Even the ones who give me the side eye like they're thinking about auditioning for UFC. They're not defiant. They're confused. They're stepping into leadership roles nobody prepared them for. So when I walk into these homes, the dog changes fast, not because I'm magical, but because my signals are consistent. I walk in with a different frequency, a different rhythm, and the dog goes, "Oh, finally, someone who speaks clearly." And right there, the behavior shifts, not because the dog is fixed, but because the dog finally has something worth following. So now that you understand the deeper psychology behind why your dog behaves the way it does, and why the dog isn't actually the problem, I want to give you something practical you can start using today. Something simple, something any owner can do, something that doesn't require special tools, special skills, or special timing. Just awareness and consistency. Let's talk about the leash. Because the leash isn't just a piece of equipment. The leash is communication, it's clarity, it's connection. And for a lot of dogs, the leash is the first place where leadership becomes real. And yet, most owners only put the leash on when the dog is already worked up, overstimulated, excited, stressed, or mid-chaos, which means the dog associates the leash with pressure, rules, and being pulled away from something they were emotionally invested in. No wonder they hate it. So here's a simple framework that changes everything. I call it leash neutrality training. It's not fancy, it's not complicated, but it's powerful. Step 1. Start when the dog is eating, not when the dog is hyper. Not when the dog is pulling, not when the dog is barking out the window like it's defending the neighborhood from invaders. Eating. Clip the leash on while the dog is at the bowl. Don't walk them. Don't ask for anything. Just clip and leave it alone. The dog learns, oh, the leash isn't a big deal. It doesn't pull me. It doesn't stop me. It doesn't take something away from me. It doesn't interrupt my life. That's the beginning of leash neutrality. Step 2. Once the dog doesn't care about the leash being clipped on, move the food bowl around. A few inches, then a foot. Maybe across the room. Let the dog follow the food while the leash is still attached. Again, you're not correcting, you're not pulling, you're not directing. You're just creating movement with the leash present so the dog can feel it without reacting to it. Now we're moving toward acceptance. Not obedience yet, just acceptance. Step 3. Once the dog can move with the bowl, try guiding them gently from one bowl to another, or from the bowl to your hand with food. Think of it like guiding a toddler by the hand. Gentle, simple, no tension. You're not walking the dog here. You're introducing a conversation. You're saying, hey, this leash is a line of communication, not a battle rope. At this stage, owners usually say, Jeff, this feels too easy. And that's the point. Training isn't supposed to feel like a wrestling match. It's supposed to feel like communication. Let me tell you why this works on a psychological level. Your dog isn't reacting to the leash. It's reacting to the emotion you attach to the leash. Most owners only grab the leash when they're about to demand something from the dog. So the dog thinks leash means tension, leash means correction, leash means pressure. We're rewriting the association. We're making the leash feel neutral, casual, even positive. Step 4. Only after the leash becomes neutral do we introduce actual walking. Not outside, not around distractions, just calm, predictable, inside the house walking. This is where you begin shaping micro-respect. Small moments of following, small moments of yielding, small moments of tuning themselves to your rhythm. Most owners jump to step 4 immediately. They skip the foundation. Then they wonder why they're being dragged down the sidewalk like a human water ski. Here's the truth. If you want your dog to follow your lead when the world is loud, you have to teach them to follow your lead when the world is quiet. Once you combine these steps, leash neutrality, movement neutrality, guided movement, calm follow mechanics, the dog goes, oh, this person communicates clearly. I understand this. I can follow this. Not because the dog was fixed, but because you finally gave the dog something worth following. Start here. This one framework alone can transform more behavior in a week than months of yelling, bribing, dragging, or guessing. At this point, you start realizing something that goes way beyond dog training. You start realizing this is really about leadership, not bribing your way out of problems. Leadership. And leadership, real leadership, is quiet. It's consistent. It doesn't need to yell to be heard. It doesn't demand respect. It earns it. And your dog feels that. Every second of the day they feel it. There's this prayer people love to quote, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can. But with dogs, we flip that because you can change the dog's behavior. You can change the relationship. You can change the dynamic in your home. And you don't need serenity here. You need awareness. You need intention. You need to seek truth, not comfort. Because the truth is, Your dog already knows how to behave. They show you that every time they choose to listen to someone else. Every time they behave differently in a different context. Every time they control themselves in some situations but not others. The dog is capable. They're just waiting for you to become capable in a way that makes sense to them. And that's the part nobody wants to admit. The dog is your mirror, not your enemy, not your frustration, not your project, your mirror. They show you your timing, your clarity, your consistency, your follow-through. They show you where you hesitate, where you doubt yourself, where you react instead of lead. They don't expose you to embarrass you, they expose you so you can grow. And when you grow, they settle. When you become grounded, they become calm. When you show direction, they follow with confidence. This is why I say dog training isn't really dog training. It's human training with a dog standing in front of you, reflecting your patterns. And look, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. There are thousands of channels doing that. I'm here to tell you what actually works, even if it stings at first. Because on the other side of that discomfort is the dog you always hoped you'd have, and the leader you always hoped you'd be. Once that clicks inside you, your whole relationship with your dog shifts. Not because the dog changed, but because the dog finally had someone worth following. If you've been listening and this clicked for you, if something in you went, yeah, this is the truth I've been missing, then stick around. This channel isn't about shortcuts or sugarcoating. It's about giving you the clarity you need to become the leader your dog has been waiting for. So if you want more of this, subscribe. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it keeps you connected to the kind of teaching that actually works. The kind of teaching that transforms dogs and owners, not through tricks, but through truth. And listen, if you want the feel-good blue pill version of dog training, there are plenty of channels that will tell you what you want to hear. No hard feelings. But if you're ready to step into real leadership, real communication, and real change, you're in the right place. So stay with me, grow with me, and together we'll build the kind of relationship with your dog that most people never get to experience.